So let me tell you something people are too polite to whisper out loud. Meghan Markle's life looks like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Designer dresses, sparkling jewelry, glowing magazine covers, Montecito mansions, and those private jets that make the world sigh. But honey, when you start following the money trail, oh boy, things stop making sense. The numbers don't add up. At all, because on paper, that income doesn't match that lifestyle. The Netflix deal? Quiet. The Spotify deal? Gone. Those brand collaborations? Scattered, inconsistent, and fading faster than last season's trends. Yet somehow, the luxury never slows down. Isn't that something? Insiders close to her whisper that someone, yes, someone, is quietly keeping that dream alive. Behind the curtains, invisible, strategic, they call it funding continuity, the elegant way of saying someone's footing her bills in the shadows. Not for kindness, not for charity, but for access. And that, my dear, is where this story really begins. Not with love, not with fame, but with money. Real, hard, powerful money. Because once you strip away the titles, the headlines, and the PR sparkle, what's left is a woman living a billionaire's life without the billionaire's bank account. And that mystery alone speaks volumes about Meghan Markle. Far more than any interview she's ever given. The crown gave her fame, but the fortune? That came from somewhere else. When Meghan first walked into that royal world, she thought she was stepping straight into unimaginable wealth. Castles, carriages, palaces dripping with gold, and a royal allowance that never ends. But reality hit her like a ton of royal bricks. Prince Harry, bless him, isn't as rich as people like to imagine. His wealth? It's comfortable, sure, but it's not billion-dollar empire comfortable. His main income? His late mother's inheritance and a few military pensions. All those palaces, those sparkling jewels, those estates people swoon over. They belong to the crown, not to Harry. Palace insiders whisper Meghan realized that truth very early on. The golden ticket she thought she'd grabbed wasn't a vault of endless money, it was a system where she had no control. And let's be honest, Meghan Markle was never made to live in the background. She's a woman who built her image brick by brick, spotlight by spotlight. So when the royal life began to feel more like a cage than a crown, cracks started showing. The charm of duty wore thin, because being royal doesn't mean being rich, it means being restrained. And Meghan, she doesn't do restrained, so that's when everything shifted. The fairy tale turned into a business plan. If the palace couldn't give her freedom, she'd find it elsewhere. She didn't just marry a prince, she married a brand she could build, leverage, and turn into capital. Now, to understand where all this suspicion about her money began, we've got to rewind the clock. Not to Netflix, not to Montecito, but way before Prince Harry ever walked into the picture. Back when Meghan was just orbiting power, quietly studying how that world really worked. Because before there were million-dollar deals and Hollywood headlines, there were patterns, trips, parties, flights, the kind of invitations that don't come for free. She started popping up beside billionaires, the kind of people who don't just attend events, they own them. Soho House wasn't just a social club for her, it was a gate. And behind that gate stood men like Ron Burkle, the billionaire investor who would later fly her privately to exclusive events. The kind of gatherings where connections weren't made, they were bought. Sources say this was Meghan's training ground, her first invisible network, the version of her social circle that existed off the books, far away from red carpets and interviews. That's where the real funding story began. Not royal money, but private access. When people ask, who funds Meghan Markle's lifestyle? The truth doesn't lie in one bank account. It lies in who she's connected to. Those early Soho years taught her the game. She wasn't just mingling. She was studying power. Every dinner, every handshake, every whispered introduction, all stepping stones toward the inner circle of wealth. That's where she met the likes of Ron Burkle. Not just a billionaire, but a connector. His jets, his estates, his quiet charity galas, they became the invisible web that carried Meghan upward. And then there were those yacht trips, off-season escapes across the Mediterranean, where actresses, investors, and influencers blended together. Meghan might not have been the star of those scenes, but she was always there. Present beside money, present beside power, present beside people who could open her next door. And that, my dear, was no coincidence. It was a strategy. By the time she met Harry, Meghan had mastered the art of appearing invited when, in truth, she was strategically placed. Her comfort wasn't built on royal wealth. It was built on access. And in that world, access is the ultimate currency. Now, once you really understand how her early years unfolded in those private circles, the luxury trips, the velvet ropes, the unspoken sponsorships, all those current questions about her finances stop sounding like conspiracy and start feeling like continuity. Because people don't just stumble into that kind of world, they get sponsored into it. Every exclusive retreat, every first-class flight, every private getaway, all of it came courtesy of someone powerful enough to pay and discreet enough to stay invisible. And that's what makes Meghan's financial picture today so fascinating. The Sussex brand stumbles, deals fall flat, production companies fade into silence, but somehow the jets still fly. The retreats stay booked, the staff stays paid. So, naturally, the question changes. When the brand fails but the bills stay covered, who's really funding the dream? The answers, insiders say, don't lie in Netflix checks or royal savings. They trace back to the same pattern that began years before Montecito, a pattern of proximity to wealth, not ownership of it. That same network that once lifted her is still there. Quiet benefactors, selective invitations, private sponsorships, funding that doesn't need a contract, just loyalty. And that's why the whispers refuse to die. Because Meghan's money story isn't about what she earns, it's about who she never stopped knowing. Publicly, Meghan Markle sells the image of independence, the self-made duchess turned media powerhouse. But behind that image, the math doesn't work. Her ventures, the Netflix series, the podcast, the lifestyle brand, all stumbled. Staff left quietly. Projects froze. Deals evaporated. Yet somehow the life remains untouched. Private jets, Montecito mansions, European holidays, a wardrobe worth more than some small countries, and a security detail that rivals royals who are still on the payroll. That contrast, that's what fuels the whispers. Because when the empire falls but the bills stay paid, people stop asking how she earns and start asking who keeps her floating. One insider called it the illusion of independence. Everything looks self-funded until you notice the hands behind the curtain. Every empire has investors. Every image has a cost. And Meghan's life, from those yachts of the past to her estates of the present, has always been a performance funded by unseen hands. It's not charity, it's strategy. Keeping her visible keeps her valuable, keeps doors open, keeps networks alive. She's not just a woman, she's a bridge between Hollywood and royalty, between activism and influence. And bridges like that, they don't crumble easily, but there's always a price. Because when your lifestyle depends on benefactors, your freedom depends on their approval. You can't bite the hand that keeps your lights on. So while the public debates whether Meghan is still profitable, the truth might just be simpler. Profitability isn't the goal. Sustainability is. Her real talent lies in never falling far enough to lose her seat at the table. And as long as that seat is paid for, the illusion stays alive. The curtain may fall, the headlines may fade, the deals may dry up, but the quiet funding continues. Because in the world Meghan Markle built, the one she learned from the billionaires of Soho House, power isn't measured in crowns or fame. It's measured in who keeps your name afloat when everyone else walks away.